welcome back to the House Judiciary Committee this Wednesday afternoon, April 16th. We're going to first take a look at S28 before at 3 o'clock, we're going to turn to H86. So with respect to S28, here's kind of a game plan. I've talked to some folks and I think we're probably ready to vote. So I have an amendment that's fairly narrow, which I'll go over in a moment, that we can vote on, take a straw poll. And then we can have a straw poll on the section, but we can certainly have some conversation first. But before I do that, I want just legislative council to join us. And then if Nate could pass out that amendment. So this was an amendment after Tom and I talked to Michelle and I wanted to address the main thing that came up that jumped out at me was some suggestions from red zoning, and I thought a couple of them did deserve have an amendment. But then also a couple concerns that were raised, I asked Michelle about, and felt that an amendment was not necessary. So if we could look at the amendment first, and then I can flag the other couple of areas that I understood from Judge Zoney that he raised a point. I don't know if it was really concerned about a point. So it's S28 draft number 1.1 amendment. Right now it's amendment from me. It doesn't necessarily have to be from me, but just to get this in front of us, I took the plunge. So if somebody wants to.
The water's fine, Martin.
Chlorinated.
There may be all sorts of things that are controversial in this bill, but hopefully my amendment is fairly straightforward. So I'll have some.
Sure. So for the record, Michelle Childs, Office of Legislative Counsel, I'm taking a look at the loan amendment that you have in front of you. So there's two amendments. The first one is to Section 6 of the bill, and that is the disclosure of protected healthcare information. And so this amendment, if you look at the House, it's amending the House Healthcare Report. So if you look at page 13 of what came out of House Healthcare, and you're looking at the provision that starts with the lead-in language at subdivision 2, which is at the top of the page on page 13, and you'll see subdivision B there. So this is around when a covered entity may disclose protected healthcare information. And you see in subdivision, the new subdivision B, the disclosure is ordered by a court or competent jurisdiction pursuant to federal law, Vermont law, or rules adopted by the Vermont Supreme Court. And current law says an order compelling disclosure under the subdivision, and then it's changed to what the court has to make a finding on with regard to in the order. And so it's this amendment, the first instance of amendment is striking in the second sentence, the word and it's clarifying that it is a state court order compelling disclosure is to make that finding. So we're not in this language directing what a federal court must include in the order, only a state court.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The second instance of amendment, that's in your last section with regard to the redaction of information that is on a prescription. So section 13 starts on page 24 of the healthcare amendment. And the change is in subsection D, where we're talking about liability. So there's some limitations on the liability for pharmacy staff around compliance with this section. And this is striking the word civil, administrative, and criminal liability, and just substituting civil and administrative liability. So it's taking out the criminal provision there. There is not any criminal provision anywhere in here that someone would be subject to for non-compliance.
So just a couple other points I'd ask you to address. That with respect to that provision on page 26, the question I asked was, should we also clarify that it's under state law. And there was one other place where I think we had the same question, which is on page 14, lines 18 to 20. These are both kind of things that.
I think in general, I mean, the standard is we can only control state law, right? So we can't tell the feds what to do. There's a supremacy clause. We're required to comply with federal law. And so I don't think it's necessary. I think that perhaps by trying to insert it in certain circumstances and where it's not in other circumstances, then it leads to kind of an interpretation that somehow you mean something different. The court graciously looks to y'all and says, oh, if they said it this way, it must mean something different over here. There must have been a reason for that. And while I wish I could say that that was true, that is not always true with the consistency. And so, again, the state does not have the ability to be infringing on the federal authority in these where it's clearly outlined. And so I don't think it's necessary.
Generally, the standard, if we have immunity type language like this, we don't say.
Correct. We can't afford federal, like we can't afford federal immunity with respect to federal law. That's not within our purview.
Okay. All right. Mm-hmm. All right. So there were a couple questions that you could come back and answer.
Yeah, if we wanted to, and Jen's going to talk a little bit about the other areas of law where we have provisions around liability protections that Zach had asked about. And then also, I just did a quick search. And so with regard to the states that have somewhat similar shield laws, and not every law is the same, and they have different kind of variations in state law. But essentially, there are 22 jurisdictions with protections for reproductive care and 18 with protections for gender affirming care. Most are through legislative action, but there are some through done through executive order as well. Non-cooperation provisions are kind of just part of the standard template for all of these shield laws. I didn't have time to go and dig up all 22, but I did look at all of the northeastern states. So like Maine, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island and stuff. So all of the ones in our area do have this.
And I guess a follow-up question with the exact same language or slightly modified.
Mm-hmm.
And these would likely be the states in some kind of regional compact that we were discussing earlier.
If there were going to be one.
If hypothetically, I mean, we always have a crystal ball,
right?
But hypothetically, we would probably assume that these states are the ones that would be party to some kind of compact.
I don't know if I could predict that.
I don't know if I'd call it necessary compact as much as just.
Well, it's not my language. It was language that was in testimony earlier, utilized earlier.
It's similar reciprocity from what we have,
right?
Whatever we call it. Yeah. Okay.
I don't.
Yeah, to
be, I guess I'm recognized, but to be recognized again. I just want to thank the chair for striking the criminal immunity from section 13.
Yeah, I think that combined with the rest of the language, it really is really the only thing this is protecting from is negligence.
Yeah. So no, it was a good faith effort, and I really appreciate it.
Jen.
Yes, Jen Carby from the Office of Legislative Counsel. So I have also been busy in the last bit of time trying to find where in statute we have immunity or limitation on liability statutes relating to healthcare professionals. So this is what I found. There's several sections that have limitations on liability regarding reporting to and good faith disclosures from various registries. So data from the cancer registry, mammography registry, ALS registry. There's limitations on liability for ordering a test. If a healthcare professional orders a test for a bloodborne pathogen, if a worker was exposed to blood or bodily fluids, I'm trying to sort of give the snapshot of these. There's more to the actual language in all of them. There's immunity for staff members, including healthcare professionals of an overdose prevention center, immunity for a healthcare professional who prescribes, dispenses, or distributes an opioid antagonist. There's immunity for dispensers and healthcare providers regarding use of and reporting to the Vermont prescription monitoring system. There's immunity for a healthcare provider who prescribes or dispenses a drug donated through the unused drug repository program. There's immunity under it's a Uniform Act, but the revised Uniform Anatomical Gift Act for someone who acts in accordance with the anatomical gift or organ donation laws or attempts in good faith to do so, including relying on a donor card as intent to make an organ donation. There's immunity for a physician who prescribes medication to a patient with a terminal condition to hasten the patient's own death in accordance with our patient choice of end-of-life laws. And there are a lot of requirements for process and documenting. There's limitations on liability for physicians, nurses, pharmacists, and others for acting in good faith compliance with the provisions of the chapter generally on patient choice at end of life. There's immunity for healthcare providers and others for following or relying on an advance directive, do not resuscitate order, clinician order for life-sustaining treatment, DNR identification, or consent of the patient or their agent, guardian, or surrogate, or relying on good faith in good faith on a suspended or revoked, should say advance directive, but dance directive is fun too, or DNR post order. And then these are all in Title 18, and then in Title 26, there's limitations on liability under the medical licensure statutes for someone who serves on a peer review committee. So there may be more, but that's what I could find.
Zach. So I just want to thank you, Jen and Michelle, for the work that you did on such very short notice to pull this stuff together. I guess, and this is very helpful in terms of as it relates to professions within the healthcare industry. I'm kind of and granted with the chair's amendment, it takes out the criminal immunity, so I'm more comfortable with that section. But I guess the root of my question was outside of healthcare.
Oh,
Are we providing immunity in any kind of profession?
yes. I mean, having just done some, in Title
Yeah.
26, there were some provisions that I didn't go to because there were real estate appraisers and
Sure.
others. I'm sure if the committee wanted to go there, you could get the Office of Professional Regulation in that regulates.
I mean, not necessarily. I feel very comfortable with what the chair's proposed. So
Great.
But thank you for the work that you guys did on it.
All right, so any other questions on the language right now from legislative council, then I can excuse them from the table so they don't get in the middle of our discussion.
They run out the door.
Nothing for them.
Thank you very much, Jen and Michelle. So any discussion on this before I just ask for a vote on the 8th amendment? Just vote on it. Yeah. So I take a motion on the loaned amendment. Well, actually, before I do that, do I need to figure out who wants to be on this amendment before I take a motion on this amendment? Or can I?
No, you can decide whoever.
Because it's a straw poll. Okay.
Submit.
What's currently the loan amendment, which we've gone over, I'll take a motion to find that favorable.
So moved.
All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
And now we'll go to, I'm gonna have a vote on I'm not gonna call it a vote on the whole bill because we didn't do the whole bill, but a vote on where we stand on the sections that we reviewed, section 1, 5, 6, and 14. And I can get a motion on the table first and then we can have discussion, or do people want to discuss first?
Motion.
Motion, okay. I'll take a motion to find favorable the sections that the committee reviewed, which are sections 1, 5, 6, and 13, and draft number 3.4 of S28 as amended by, do I say as amended by the law?
Say the report. Oh.
No, it'd just be on the report and the amendment separate. We're not amending the report.
No, but people may feel different. I don't know if people feel differently
So,
about
As
what they support.
As amended, right. It'll be as amended. Whoever's going to report this will say that we took a straw poll on those sections as amended by this amendment. Right. Thank you, Jen. That makes sense. Okay.
Second.
Okay, let's open it for discussion. There doesn't have to be a lot of discussion. I have a feeling I know where certain votes are going to be already, but that's absolutely fine. But people feel comfortable where they are in voting.
You feel, Chair, that there's no need for further testimony?
I mean, I don't think so, but I'm open to hear from other folks. I think that we've thoroughly covered what is really our subject matter, I believe.
If you feel that way, then so be it.
So I'm just gonna take it as a straw poll. I take it that we don't, if it's just, we don't have possession, that I don't do a roll call, is that correct?
Generally, yes.
Okay,
You don't have possession.
we don't have
So
possession.
there's nothing for you to turn into, there's no record for you to turn into.
So all those in favor of finding those four sections favorable as amended by the Lalone amendment, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those opposed, raise your hand. 3. All right. So, yeah, no, I saw. And as a straw poll, you didn't have to be in your seat, but if it actually was a roll call. we
I know.
So who wants to be on the amendment who voted yes? Angela, Karen. Well, I mean, I was gonna punt this to Karen to actually report it. She. You said you would,
You
right?
are, she says.
So it would be, how about just Karen and me on the amendment?
And the amendment was 11-0, right?
No, the amendment was 11-0, but I think we can talk to Betsy Ann about how we report straw polls.
Okay, yeah.
As long as it's very clear that we're 8-3 on those four sections, I think that's the part.
So we're not, in a sense, amending our work, we're amending healthcare's.
Right, I said,
Yeah.
Karen or I will go and present it to healthcare tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Because they need to vote on
Right.
the amendment. Now, the question is, if healthcare finds us unfavorable, and we don't have a straw poll.
That's right.
I suspect that they will defer to our subject matter jurisdiction. We'll find it favorable, presumably.
Mr. Chair, can I just, is it your amendment or is it Representative Dolan's amendment? Like whoever's going to report it on?
They have it with Karen's amendment, and I'll be on it as well. In case Karen changes her mind by 2.
Karen, and what does your amendment say again?
All right, so we don't have our witnesses until 3, so we have a little time off between now.
No, we hear
Oh, wait, we do? I'm sorry.
O'Grady.
Yeah, but I think we need to start with O'Grady.
After last time when we,
All right, well, let me think. So who do I have? I don't have anybody else here anyway. Yeah.
On the Zoom.
Oh.
so last time we
Okay.
started without going over the amendment and we went right into testimony and it got really confusing.
Right.
And it sounds like we amended
Good
it
reminder.
quite a bit, correct?
Yes,
Right.
yes. Let's wait until we have Mike do the walkthrough. So it's you've got a copy on your table. It's 886. It's the salt bill. Salt bill. So we're not starting until 3 because O'Grady is.
I'm sorry, I left you off.
Actually, everybody just stand by because it's possible that we'll get O'Grady a little bit earlier. I'll text people if we do because as soon as he's done in environment, he's gonna